Today, let us talk about feminism in Ambedkarism. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar is known by many names. People call him the maker of the Indian Constitution, a hero for the poor and oppressed, a brilliant legal mind, and a scholar of great wisdom. But many people forget that Baba Sahib also cared deeply about the rights and well-being of women. Baba Sahib was not only fighting for the rights of the Dalits and other marginalized communities, he was also a strong voice. He was also a strong voice for gender equality. He believed that a truly just and equal society can never be built unless women are treated with dignity, respect, and fairness in all areas of life. His thoughts and actions form a powerful foundation for what we today call it as feminism. Feminism, in simple terms, feminism is the belief that women and men should have equal rights and opportunity. It is the understanding that women should have control over their own lives, own decisions, and their own bodies. Feminism also challenges the unfair systems and traditions that keep women in lower positions or treat them as less capable than men. In this sense, Baba Sahib Ambedkar was a feminist thinker and a reformer long before this word became commonly used in India. That word is feminism. But his feminism was not limited to theory or idealism. It was deeply practical, rooted in law, rooted in policy, and rooted in social change. In 1928, when he was a member of the Bombay Legislative Council, Ambedkar supported a bill that proposed paid maternity leave for women working in factories. At a time when women's needs were rarely considered in lawmaking, Dr. Ambedkar argued that employees who earned profits from women's labor, they should also take responsibility for supporting women during their pregnancy. He didn't see this as a charity, but as a justice. He said that the state also must share this responsibility because it is in the interest of the entire nation that mothers get proper rest before and after childbirth. In this, Dr. Ambedkar showed not only compassion but a clear recognition of women's role as both workers and life givers. He connected women's health and economic independence with the national progress. In 1938, again as a member of the Bombay Legislative Assembly, Ambedkar took a bold step. Baba Sahib took a bold step forward by recommending that birth control facilities should be made available to women. His message was clear. A woman should not be forced into motherhood. If she does not wish to bear a child, for whatever the reason it may be, she must have the power to prevent conception. This idea was revolutionary in those days. He argued that the decision to become a mother, it should rest entirely with the woman, not with her husband, not with the family, or not with the society. This was a powerful argument for reproductive rights, long before such conversations became mainstream. Dr. Ambedkar, he wanted women to have control over their own bodies and to live without fear, without pressure, or without shame. He believed that real freedom begins with self-ownership, especially for women. Between 1942 and 1946, when Baba Sahib served as the Labour member in the Viceroy's Executive Council, Dr. Ambedkar introduced several important reforms for women working in factories and any other sectors. He ensured that women received rights such as casual leaves, earned leaves, paid holidays, compensation for injuries at work, and even pensions. These These changes were not simply about comfort. They were about giving women a sense of safety, dignity, and recognition in the workplace. These reforms also responded to the voice of women themselves. In 1942, the All India Depressed Classes Mahila Federation, a powerful women's group, held a meeting where they demanded exactly the same rights which are proposed by Baba Sahib. Ambedkar listened to them, respected their demands, and turned them into actions. Turned their demands into actions. He did not just speak for women, he stood with them. Through all of these, Dr. Ambedkar's feminism was unique. It was not limited to upper class or urban women, as it often was in those times. His feminism included Dalit women, working class women, rural women, those who were doubly and triply oppressed by caste, class, and gender. He saw clearly how caste and patriarchy were linked and how both had to be broken for true liberation of women. He understood that without women's freedom, social justice would remain incomplete. Dr. Ambedkar's commitment to women's rights. It was lifelong. It was lifelong. He saw women not as dependents, but as individuals with their own minds, individuals with their own strengths and own rights. His feminism was about equality, but also about dignity, opportunity, and freedom from fear. He believed that women must have equal space in public life, in education, in employment, and in decision making. He believed in building a society where no girl is told that she is less than anyone else, and where no woman is made to suffer simply for being a woman. In the light of all this, feminism in Ambedkarism is not just a small part. It is powerful and central pillar. It is the idea that justice must include gender justice and that the upliftment of a society is impossible without the upliftment of women. So, Baba Sahib's feminism was ahead of its time, yet deeply relevant to our times. Now, let's see the revolutionary move by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in that direction that happened in 1948, April 9. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, as the first law minister of independent India, he introduced the draft of the Hindu Code Bill in the Constituent Assembly. This was not just a legal document. It was revolutionary. It was revolutionary move that aimed to bring justice, fairness, and dignity into the lives of Hindu women. At a time when women were treated as second-class citizens within their own homes and families, Dr. Ambedkar used the power of law to challenge deeply rooted inequality. His efforts showed a strong feminist vision. The bill proposed that when a person died without writing a will, their property would be divided equally among the widow, son, and daughter. Earlier, daughters were often denied any right to property and widows were sidelined. But Dr. Ambedkar gave them a rightful place as equal heirs. Although the daughter's share was still only half of what the son received, it was a groundbreaking step that shook the foundations of the male-dominated traditions. Ambedkar also reformed the laws of marriage. He recognized both religious and civil marriages, giving people the freedom to choose. He made monogamy compulsory. Monogamy compulsory, meaning one person could marry only one partner, which protected women from being sidelined in polygamous setups. He also introduced the right to divorce, something that was unthinkable for many at the time, especially for women who were expected to suffer silently in bad marriages. The bill listed 7 valid reasons for divorce, including desertion, cruelty, mental illness, or the spouse having a contagious disease. These provisions gave women a legal path to escape suffering and reclaim their dignity. One of the most forward-thinking parts of the bill was that if a marriage was later declared invalid by the court, the children from that marriage would still be considered legitimate. This protected women and their children from lifelong shame and social rejection. Ambedkar's thinking, it was not only legal, it was deeply humane and feminist. He cared about the dignity, rights, and future of women who were often ignored by both society and the law. What is the most remarkable is that Dr. Ambedkar, although born into a Dalit family and mainly seen as a leader of the oppressed and marginalized classes, but he did not limit his efforts to only one section of society, even though he had already decided to leave Hinduism and embrace Buddhism, but even then he still took the time and effort to draft a law that would benefit Hindu women, including those from upper caste. He fought for women not just as a group, but as human beings deserving of equality, justice, and independence. This shows his deep understanding of the shared pain women face, regardless of caste or regardless of class. Ambedkar's fight for women's rights, it was not just legal, it was moral and it was emotional. He believed that no society could be truly free or equal until its women were treated with the same respect and rights as men. Feminism in Ambedkarism is not about slogans. It is about action. It is about changing the system from within. Through this bill, Baba Sahib showed the nation that women deserves equal rights in the home, in relationships, even in property, and in society. His work reminds us that feminism is not new to India. It was already alive in Ambedkar's thoughts, Ambedkar's words, Ambedkar's action. He used every platform available, whether it was the constitution, it was the parliament, or whether it was the lawmaking. He used it to uplift women and challenge patriarchy. That is why Ambedkar is not just a leader of the oppressed, but also one of the earliest and strongest champions of gender justice in modern India. Now, let's go a bit further and examine some questions. How did Dr. Ambedkar understand gender? How did Dr. Ambedkar understand gender? How did he understand caste? And most importantly, how did he connect these two? If you see his famous essay, Caste in India, written in 1960, Ambedkar explained that caste came into the existence when social groups began to divide and separate themselves into classes. These classes slowly closed themselves up and became caste. According to Dr. Ambedkar, the key feature of caste is endogamy, which means marrying only within one's own group. He believed that it was the priestly class that first started this trend by creating strict rules about who could marry, whom they could marry. This helped them maintain their social status and power. Eventually, other groups followed this practice, and caste became a rigid and permanent part of our society. But how was this practice of marrying within the same caste strictly maintained? Ambedkar pointed out that this was done by controlling women, especially their choices, their freedom, and their sexuality. Women's behavior was closely watched to prevent any intercaste marriages because such unions would threaten the boundaries of caste. In this way, gender was not separate from caste. It was deeply tied to it. Dr. Ambedkar saw that caste survived and thrived by using patriarchy as a tool. He believed that both women and lower caste, they were oppressed by the same system. So, if we want to destroy caste, we must also fight gender discrimination. In his view, true equality would only come when both caste and gender hierarchies are eliminated together. Ambedkar's awareness about gender oppression, it came from three powerful sources. First, his own personal experience of being humiliated as an untouchable. He had seen and felt the pain of being treated as less than human. At the Mahar Satyagraha in 1947, he addressed a gathering of Dalit women and he poured out his pain. He said to women, you gave birth to us. You know how society treats us as lower than animals. In some places, even our child is not allowed to fall on others. Children born to upper caste women, they get good jobs in offices and courts. But your sons cannot even become peons in the police department. If someone asks you why you gave birth to us, what answer will you give? What is the difference between your children and the children of upper caste women sitting here? Through these words, these are the questions asked by Baba Sahib Ambedkar to women. He showed that the pain of caste and the suffering of women were deeply connected. And the second thing is, his deep and powerful thinking helped him understand the link between caste and gender at a rhetorical level. He wasn't just an emotional leader. He was also a sharp intellectual in caste in India. He wrote about how the system of caste used to control over women to maintain its purity and power. His analysis came from the bottom of the social ladder, giving him a unique perspective on how caste and patriarchy work together. That's the thing. Coming to third point, his leadership and work with grassroots women, the women movements, it shaped his thoughts and actions even more. There were three clear phases in the women's empowerment during Ambedkar's time. In the late 1920s, women actively joined the general social movements alongside men, especially the temple entry movement, where both men and women, they protested together. They protested against caste discrimination. Then in the 1930s, women began to realize the need for their own independent organization. They started forming groups where they could speak for themselves and fight for their rights. Then, by the 1940s, these efforts grew into national political organizations like the All India Depressed Classes Mahila Federation. Under Ambedkar's leadership, women from different parts of India, they came together, discussed their issues and passed important resolutions. Through all of this, it became clear that Ambedkar's feminism was not separate from his fight against caste. It was part of this fight. For him, true social justice, it meant freedom for both the oppressed caste and for women. His vision was of a society where no one is treated as inferior, whether because of their caste or because of their gender. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's thoughts, words, and actions, they had a deep and powerful impact on the lives of women, especially those from oppressed and marginalized communities. His speeches, Baba Sahib Ambedkar's speeches. They did not only speak about political rights or legal reforms. He spoke directly to the hearts of people, and he spoke with a vision of true equality. One of the most powerful examples of this was seen during the Mahar Satyagraha in 1927, when the immediate demand was access to drinking water from public taps. And for women, this movement meant much more. It was a movement of awakening. Ambedkar told women that they should stop wearing clothes, jewelry, and symbols that marked them as untouchables. He told them that they deserved dignity and self-respect, just like anyone else in the society. This message was simple, but this message was revolutionary. For centuries, these women have been told how to live, what to wear, and how to behave. They have been made to feel ashamed of who they were. But Ambedkar words, it gave them a new strength. Women began draping their saris in new ways, not just as a change of fashion, but as a statement. But as a statement of pride, it was a way of saying we are equal. We are proud of who we are. This transformation was not forced. It came from within. It was the result of courage sparked by Ambedkar's message of human dignity. In 1935, when Dr. Ambedkar announced that he was going to leave Hinduism because it refused to treat Dalits as human beings, women once again stood by him. Women stood by him. They did not stay silent. They came together, organized meetings, and expressed their support for his decision. But they also raised a powerful and thoughtful concern. They pleaded with him not to choose a religion that would force them into being hidden, being silenced, or being separated from the world. This shows how much they had grown in confidence and awareness. They were not only followers, they had developed a voice of their own. They had learned to ask questions, to make demands, and to stand up for their rights. In 1938, Ambedkar made a clear and bold statement. He said that a woman is not just someone's daughter, or not someone's wife, not someone's mother. She is a complete human being in herself. She is an individual. She must have her own freedom, her own choices, and her own identity. This was a time when most of society expected women to live quietly, and obey their husbands and obey their fathers. But Ambedkar was thinking ahead. He saw that for society to be truly free, women had to be free too. In another speech in the same year, he encouraged women to have pure children. Not because he did not value family, but because he wanted women to be free from the physical and emotional exhaustion of repeated childbirth. He said, if there are pure children, women are freed from the terrible burden of childbearing and can use their strength for other tasks. It was by Ambedkar. This showed that he deeply understood the everyday pain and pressure women face. His feminism was not limited to speeches. It was practical. It was rooted in daily life, and it was full of empathy. Throughout Dr. Ambedkar's life, he remained closely connected to the ground realities of common people. He saw how customs and traditions kept women poor, tired, and silent. So he encouraged women to reject those customs. He asked them to stop spending huge amounts of money on weddings. He promoted simple, low-cost marriage ceremonies, and women followed. Women followed his advice because It made sense. It brought relief. It brought respect and rationality to their life. He also promoted the idea that girls should not be married off at a young age. He supported intercaste marriages, which were seen as shocking at that time. But women embraced these ideas. They began to believe. They began to believe in a new kind of future. A future where they had the right to choose their path. Dr. Ambedkar didn't just lead women. He listened to them, learned from them, and stood with them. His gender sensitivity was not borrowed from books or borrowed from the West. It came from the real life experiences of the women he worked with. He knew, Baba Sahib knew their pain. He respected their strength. That mutual trust between Ambedkar and women and his women followers, it became one of the strongest part of his social movement. Now, while Ambedkar was working for real change, many other national leaders were caught in symbolic ideas. They often used the image of Mother India, which meant to symbolize strength, pride, and national unity. But in reality, Indian women were not treated with dignity. They were not given power or respect in their daily lives. They had no political voice, no legal rights, no independence. The image of Mother India was worshipped, but the real daughters of India were silenced and they were oppressed. Dr. Ambedkar saw through these things. He refused to be part of that illusion. He rejected the idea of a united, glorious India built on myth. Instead, he introduced the term Bahishkrit Bharat, outcast of India. He reminded us that the nation was broken, divided by caste, divided by gender, and divided by power. There was not one India, there were many Indias, and only some people had power while others suffered in silence. He carved out the truth that others tried to hide. While nationalist leaders like Tilak, they were shouting slogans like Vande Mataram and Bharat Mata Ki Jai. They were also opposing reforms that would help women. For example, when the British introduced the age of consent bill to raise the age for girls from 10 years to 12 years, Tilak and others fought against this. They said it was against Indian culture. Imagine that saving young girls from abuse was seen as an Edda tradition. This is how deeply patriarchy was protected, even in the name of nationalism. Even with the British rule introducing ideas like democracy and citizenship, the caste system and the patriarchy, they remained untouched. The old ways still ruled, just under new names. British administration like Sir Herbert Beasley, he pointed out that no society could become a great nation if its women were denied freedom and respect. He said that a society that accepts the moral and intellectual stagnation of its women, it cannot produce heroes or build a strong nation. This was a direct challenge to India's nationalist leaders who wanted the glory of a nation but not the burden of equality. Scholar Partha Chatterjee later wrote that India's nationalist narrative, it may sound historical, but in reality it was apologetic. It pretended to be progressive while protecting one's structure. This is why Ambedkar's vision was different. He wanted real freedom, not just from colonial rule, but from caste, but from patriarchy, from ignorance. So he wanted that type of liberty. He imagined an India where women were free to think, speak, learn, and lead. He wanted a future where women were not worshipped as goddesses, but respected as equals in society. Ambedkarism is not just about the rights of Dalits or the making of the constitution. It is also about feminism. It is about listening to women, standing with women, and fighting for women for their full and equal place in the society. It is a reminder that any movement for justice, it must include the voices of women, especially those at the margins. Baba Sahib believed that the progress of a community, it depends on the progress of its women. And that belief remains a guiding light for us today. So, while thinking deeply about what makes a nation, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar did not limit himself to politics or laws alone. He understood that a true nation is not only built through governments and constitutions, it is built in the everyday lives of its people, through their social relationships and how they treat one another. He developed a powerful idea that a nation cannot survive or a nation cannot grow if it does not treat all its citizens equally. And he was very clear. This includes the treatment of women. He closely studied the position of women in Indian society and found that they were being treated not as equal citizens, but as second-class human beings. He saw how deep this injustice went. Women were being controlled in their families, denied education, kept away from property, and were not allowed to make choices for themselves. Even their bodies and their futures, they were not truly theirs. This led to cruel and harmful practices like endogamy, where people are forced to marry within their caste, child marriage, female infanticide, and the honor of sati. Honor of sati, where a widow was buried alive on her husband's funeral party. These were not just social evils. Ambedkar said they were political weapons. They were used to keep women out of the power, out of society, and out of national life. When women are pushed to the margins, when they are denied their rights, half the nation is silent. And when half the nation is silent, how can we call ourselves free? Ambedkar believed that women play a much deeper role in building a nation than most people realize. Women are the ones who give birth to future generations. Women are the ones who raise children, and women are the ones who teach values, culture, and traditions within the family. They shape the minds and moral of the society from the ground up. In this way, they silently but powerfully influence the future of the country. However, despite this crucial role, their contribution has often been ignored. Women's contributions were ignored. History, politics, and society, they have usually focused only on the actions of men, while the important part played by women in shaping the nation's identity, it has been overlooked, it has been forgotten. So, for Dr. Ambedkar, the nation was not just a political idea. It was a living, breathing relationship between people who shared the values of justice, equality, and dignity. Dr. Ambedkar said, without social union, political unity is difficult to be achieved. If we truly to build a country only through people, political slogans, without fixing the injustice in society, then the country will be weak. It will be like a young plant in summer, green and fresh, but easily uprooted by a strong wind. He warned that if we ignore these inequalities, the biggest threat to India would not be from outside enemies, but from inside. But from inside, from the anger and pain of people who are treated unfairly and kept out of the system. And and that includes women. So, how did this unfair system trap men for so long? Dr. Ambedkar explained that from ancient times, men were always seen as the superior. They had more respect, they had more control, they had more opportunity. Men made the rules, and those rules mostly benefited men. Women had to follow those rules no matter how unfair the system. These rules were often tied to religion, custom, and social beliefs, so they were hard to question. A man could create these rules and yet still be free from these rules. But a woman had to obey them even if it meant suffering for her whole life. He pointed out that patriarchy in India was not just about men controlling women in the home. It was also a clever way of preserving caste. Caste and gender, they worked together to create a system where both Dalits and women were oppressed. Keeping women within strict boundaries, it helped to maintain the purity of caste, especially through control of marriage and control of reproduction. So, women were not just victims. Women were not just victims of gender-based oppression. They were also key to how the caste system functioned. The control of women was used as a weapon to keep caste hierarchies alive. This power was not always violent in appearance, but it was deeply violent in impact. It could be open. It could be woven like denying women education or jobs. But it could also be silent and dangerous like creating a society where women are afraid to ask questions or don't even realize they have the right to speak. Even during the freedom movement, when women were encouraged to step out of their homes and join the struggle, their roles were still limited. Mahatma Gandhi, if you take the example of Mahatma Gandhi, he did bring women into the political space through movements like Satyagraha and non-cooperation. He spoke against Parda. He spoke against Parda, which kept women hidden, and slowly developed an understanding of how women could contribute. But even Mahatma Gandhi believed in traditional roles for women. He upheld ideas like Varnashram Dharma, which were part of the very system that justified inequality. For Gandhi, the ideal woman was still one who stayed in the home spinning cotton on the charkha while men led the struggle outside. So, even when women were invited into the national movement, they were told where they could stand, what they could do, and how far they could go. They were included, but only on someone else's terms. This is why Dr. Ambedkar challenged the fake image of the ideal Indian woman as Bharat Mata, wearing a white sari, carrying a national flag. He said that this image is empty and dishonest unless the real living women of India, they are respected, empowered and protected. A woman is not a symbol. She is a person. She is a person, and unless she is given her full rights as a citizen, India can never be called a true democracy. So, Baba Sahib Ambedkar firmly believed that the country must embrace state socialism, not to control people, but to make sure that resources, opportunities and power, they are shared very fairly. He said that a nation is not just a piece of land. A nation is made by people who feel they belong, who feel that they are treated equally, and who share a sense of justice. People should not feel like they are excluded from the wealth of the nation or that they are always last in the line for education, jobs and justice. It should not be there. in Dr. Ambedkar's vision. The true nation is one where everyone, men, women, Dalit, workers, the poor, everyone feels a part of something bigger than themselves. Where no one is above the law and no one is below dignity, where liberty, equality and fraternity are not just ideals written in books, but values, believe everything. That is the feminism in Ambedkar. That is the feminism in Ambedkar. It is not about special treatment. It is about equal treatment. It is about rebuilding society in a way that no one, especially women, is left behind. So, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar did not believe in empty slogans. He did not believe in empty slogans or emotional attachment to tradition without reason. He always said that just calling India our Mathrubhumi, our motherland, Pitrubhumi, our fatherland, are repeating phrases like brother, brothers. So, it would not make India a true nation. If we do something for the namesake, it won't make India a true nation. For Dr. Ambedkar, such phrases were meaningless if they did not bring real change in the lives of people, especially those who were suffering. Those who were suffering due to inequality, due to injustice. He believed that without challenging the basic structure of society and its deep-rooted values, we could never create a united, equal and just India. He was clear that the foundation of a strong nation had to be social justice. It had to be a society where every individual, man or woman, rich or poor, upper caste or lower caste, they must have dignity, they must have rights and the freedom to live with self-respect. A country could not be strong half of its population, the women were treated as a second-class citizen. Ambedkar, he also gave a very important warning. He said that people should never blindly worship political leaders. According to Dr. Ambedkar, serving the people is the highest form of duty, much more valuable than worshipping any individual. He said that while devotion is a noble path in religion, in politics it can be dangerous. Devotion can be dangerous in politics. Devotion to a leader without questioning their actions leads to the death of public conscience, the ability to think, to speak up, and to do what is right. This kind of blind following can open the door to dictatorship and destroy democracy. So, Ambedkar practiced what he preached. He never followed any leader blindly. Instead, he always used reason, he always used logic, and he always used compassion. He focused on solving India's most difficult problems: caste, discrimination, gender, inequality, poverty, religious hatred, through democratic and humanist principles. Though he had a Western education and admired the values of justice and liberty from those cultures, he always emphasized that we must reform our own society. He wanted India to take pride in its cultural heritage, but only in the parts that were fair, that were kind, that were national. He stood against anything in tradition that oppressed women or discriminated against people. When he was drafting the Indian Constitution, Dr. Ambedkar saw it not just as a legal document, but as a tool to rebuild the nation. He wanted the Constitution. He wanted the Constitution to touch every part of society, political, economic, cultural, and bring the to equality. His belief in one person, one vote, it was revolutionary in a country divided by caste and gender. He made sure that Indian women were seen not as dependents, but as free equal citizens. He gave them the same legal status, rights, and protections as women. Something unheard of. something unheard of in many parts of the world at that time. Dr. Ambedkar's feminism was not symbolic, it was structural. He knew that giving women equality only on paper was not enough. Real empowerment required real representation. So he introduced three powerful ideas to ensure women were part of building the nation. First, he argued that women needed political powers of their own. Women needed political powers of their own. They needed to be present where decisions were made, in legislature, in community leadership, in movements for development and change. Then second, he knew that society might not willingly give women their rights. That is why he demanded strong constitutional safeguards for women. Strong constitutional safeguards. Laws that would protect women's voices and give them the space to express their needs and fight for their rights. Then, third point. He asked for supportive policies, education, healthcare, employment and safety, so that women could grow and contribute to national development without fear or without discrimination. Dr. Ambedkar's dream of India was inclusive. It welcomed all, not just the privileged, but the oppressed, the voiceless, and especially the women. His vision of Prabuddha Bharat, which means enlightened India, it came from his earlier vision of Vaishnav Bharat, the India of security. He believed that India could only rise when the last person in society, including the poor Dalit women in the village, she could stand with dignity and say, I am equal. His nation was not built on uniformity. It was built on unity in diversity. He knew that every person is different and yet everyone deserves equal respect. A true nation for him was one where women were not just protected but empowered, where they were leaders, where they were thinkers, where women were creators of society. He said that the identity of every individual matters, whether they are women or Dalit, Adivasi, other any marginalized group. This identity is not fixed. It grows, it learns, it interacts with society, it interacts with culture, it interacts with the world. He believed that women's ideas, experiences and struggles, they must be part of the national narrative. Their voices carry knowledge and their leadership can bring meaningful change. For Ambedkar, freedom was not just the absence of slavery. It was the presence of opportunity, dignity and justice. And that freedom, it could only exist in a nation that truly accepted its women as equal. That is why his words, educate, hesitate, organize, they are still powerful to even today. He wanted every woman to be educated, aware of her rights, and unafraid to demand their justice. He wanted Indian women to break their silence, raise their voices, and become active participants in building the future of our nation. Because, as he so rightly believed, the progress of a country is not real unless the women progress with it. The strength of a nation depends on the strength of its women. So, in conclusion, Dr. Ambedkar showed us that the fight for justice, it must include the fight for gender equality. His ideas were not only for Dalits or for a few, but for every woman who dreams of a better life. Ambedkarism teaches us that true progress is not possible unless women are free, educated and empowered. If we want to build a fair and equal society, we must carry forward Baba Sahib's message that no reform is complete without the liberation of women.